What if the darkness in a room could hold secrets more profound than anything found in the light? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quaint neighborhood of Maplewood, Jake Thompson found himself standing at the threshold of his grandparents' old house, an unremarkable two-story structure nestled between the vibrant hues of autumn leaves. This visit was supposed to be a simple family obligation, a chance to reconnect with his roots. Little did he know that within the confines of the guest room, a sinister presence awaited him, lurking in the shadows. Jake was an ordinary guy, a 20-something accountant with a penchant for numbers and a healthy dose of skepticism. He had never put much stock in ghost stories, chalking them up to the overactive imaginations of those who told them. However, as he stepped inside the house, a shiver ran down his spine, an inexplicable sense of unease washing over him. The air inside was thick, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. The guest room was nothing out of the ordinary. A well-worn bed, a sturdy oak dresser, and a window that barely let in the fading light. But there was something strange about the room, a heaviness that made it feel foreign, even hostile. It was as if the darkness clung to the corners, whispering secrets that made Jake's skin prickle. He shook it off, dismissing it as the byproduct of too many late-night horror movies. But as he settled into bed, the first signs of conflict began to unfold. A soft rustle echoed from the darkened corner of the room, a sound that seemed far too deliberate for the idle noises of an old house. Jake's heart raced, and he strained his ears, trying to discern the source. Was it just the house settling, or was there something else lurking in the shadows? He could almost convince himself it was nothing, until he heard it again. A faint whisper, like a voice carried on the wind, chilling him to the bone. Jake pushed the covers aside, his curiosity piqued. He flicked on the bedside lamp, illuminating the room in a warm glow that danced with the shadows. The space felt different now, less daunting, but the whispers persisted, teasing him from the depths of the darkness. Shadows flickered, darting along the walls as if something or someone was moving just out of view. He dismissed it as his imagination, but the sense of being watched lingered, gnawing at him like a persistent itch. The atmosphere of the room was thick with an unsettling energy, as if it were a character in its own right. The wallpaper, adorned with faded floral patterns, seemed to close in around him, and the wooden floor creaked underfoot as he walked cautiously toward the window. Outside, the familiar streetlights cast their glow, illuminating the peaceful neighborhood. A stark contrast to the growing tension inside. Jake felt a longing to escape, to step back into the light, but something compelled him to stay, to uncover the mystery that had begun to unfold. As he stood by the window, lost in thought, fleeting memories of childhood visits to this very house flickered through his mind. He recalled the warmth of his grandmother's embrace and the feeling of safety that enveloped him in her presence. But lurking beneath those fond memories was an unsettling truth, a family secret that had been whispered about in hushed tones. In the back of his mind, he remembered tales of strange happenings that his grandparents had brushed off as mere folklore. Now, standing alone in a darkened room, those stories felt less like fiction and more like a warning. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. The shadows grew bolder, stretching and twisting across the walls in unnatural ways. The whispers escalated into soft laughter, echoing through the room, a sound that sent chills racing down his spine. Just as Jake's heart began to pound in his chest, he heard a distinct sound, a soft, deliberate knock, as if someone were tapping on the wall. He turned sharply, his heart racing as he scanned the darkened corners of the room. "Hello?" he called out, his voice trembling. The laughter ceased, replaced by a suffocating silence. It felt as if the very air around him had thickened, pressing down on him, leaving him breathless. The shadows shifted in the corners, and with a sudden rush of dread, Jake felt something, an undeniable presence, hovering just behind him. Was it all in his head, or was this room truly haunted? As he gripped the edge of the dresser, his mind raced with questions. He had come here seeking solace, but instead, he had awakened something long dormant. The darkness, once a mere absence of light, was now alive with sinister possibilities, and Jake was trapped within its grasp, a reluctant participant in a story that was only just beginning to unfold. Jake stood frozen in the dim light of the guest room, his breath coming in short gasps as he processed the surreal atmosphere surrounding him. The knock on the wall echoed in his mind, a vivid reminder that he was not alone. A part of him wanted to dismiss it all as a figment of his imagination, but the heavy air and the lingering laughter felt too real to ignore. Just then, the door creaked open slightly, as if inviting him to step further into the unknown. With a surge of determination, Jake pushed the door wider and stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the floorboards creaking beneath him. The house felt alive, vibrating with energy that pulsed in time with his racing heart. As he ventured down the corridor, the shadows seemed to dance playfully, beckoning him deeper into the heart of the mystery. He was drawn to the living room, where a flickering light glowed under the closed door. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob, doubts creeping in. What if he was merely imagining things? But the whispers from the shadows urged him on, pulling him closer to the source of the unsettling energy. He turned the knob and pushed the door open, revealing a room steeped in darkness save for the warm light of a flickering fireplace. It illuminated the faces of his parents, his younger sister Emily, and his uncle Mark, who were huddled together, deep in conversation. "Jake!" his mother exclaimed, her face lighting up with a smile. "We were just talking about you. Come join us!" Jake stepped into the room, feeling a rush of warmth wash over him, momentarily dispelling the chill that had gripped him. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to shake off the unease from the guest room. Uncle Mark looked up, his expression grave. "We were just discussing your grandparents' house and some of the strange things that have happened here over the years," he said, his tone serious. "You might want to know about them, especially after what you said earlier about feeling uneasy." Jake raised an eyebrow, intrigued, despite himself. "Strange things? Like what?" His mother exchanged a wary glance with Uncle Mark before she spoke. "There have been rumors, Jake. Things your grandparents brushed off as nonsense, but they've always been there. Whispers in the night, shadows moving where they shouldn't, and even things going missing." Emily leaned closer, her eyes wide with excitement. "I heard a story from Grandma once about a hidden room in this house. She said it was where they kept their secrets." Jake's skepticism flared up again, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the house. "Come on, you can't seriously believe that," he said, trying to sound dismissive. Uncle Mark leaned forward, his expression intense. "No, listen, I used to think it was all just stories too. But after your grandparents passed, I started finding things in the attic, old photographs, letters, even a journal that doesn't belong to either of them. It's all connected somehow." The air grew heavier with every word, and Jake felt that familiar chill creeping back in. "What kind of things?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mark hesitated, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "Things about a family member we never talked about, someone who was different, someone who might have been connected to the strange happenings in this house." Jake's heart raced as he processed the implications. The family secrets he had always brushed off as mere gossip were now taking on a more sinister tone. He glanced at Emily, who looked equally captivated and frightened. "What happened to this person?" Jake asked, a sense of dread pooling in his stomach. Mark sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's the thing. We don't know. Your grandparents never spoke of them, and the journal is incomplete. but there are references to rituals and dark occurrences. It's unsettling. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows against the walls, and Jake felt the room closing in on him. The darkness outside seemed to seep into the corners, feeding on their fears. "Maybe we should just leave it alone," he said, but the conviction in his voice wavered. Emily piped up, "But what if we could find out more? What if there's a reason why we keep feeling this presence?" Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of fear and determination. Jake's mind raced. Could it be possible that they were on the brink of uncovering something important, something that had been buried within the walls of this house for decades? He glanced at his family, each of them holding their breath, waiting for his decision. "Okay," he said slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Let's find that journal, and if there's a hidden room, we'll look for it together. But we have to promise each other that if it gets too strange, we'll stop." Eyes turned to him, and there was a flicker of relief in Uncle Mark's gaze. "I'll help you, Jake. I think it's time we faced whatever this is. We owe it to your grandparents to uncover the truth." With a shared resolve, they gathered their flashlights and made their way back to the attic, where the remnants of the past lay shrouded in dust and shadows. As they climbed the narrow staircase, Jake felt the air grow colder, the darkness tightening its grip. The whispers from the guest room echoed in his mind, urging him to turn back, but he pressed on, determined to confront the secrets that had haunted his family for generations. Once they reached the attic, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of mildew lingered. Old trunks and boxes were piled haphazardly around the room, their contents hidden beneath layers of cloth and cobwebs. Jake flicked on his flashlight, illuminating the space around them. "Okay, where do we start?" he asked, trying to mask his anxiety. The shadows loomed, seeming to watch their every move. Uncle Mark gestured toward a corner where an old trunk sat, its surface worn and cracked. "Let's check that one first. It looks like it hasn't been opened in years." They approached the trunk cautiously, and Jake felt a strange pull toward it, as if it held the answers to questions he hadn't even thought to ask. As they gathered around, the air grew thicker, and the room felt charged with energy, as if they were on the precipice of uncovering something monumental. With trembling hands, Uncle Mark lifted the lid, and a cloud of dust erupted into the air, forcing them to cough. Inside lay a jumble of old clothes, yellowed papers, and a small, leather-bound journal. Jake's heart raced as he reached for the journal, feeling its weight in his hands. As he opened it, the pages crackled, revealing ornate handwriting that told a story of love, loss, and rituals long forgotten. The words seemed to pulse with life, echoing the very whispers that had haunted him since his arrival. But as he read, the narrative twisted, revealing a darker side to his family's history, a connection to the very shadows that seemed alive in the room. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from below, rattling the floorboards and sending a wave of dread through them all. "What was that?" Jake exclaimed, his heart pounding in his chest. Uncle Mark's expression hardened. "We need to stick together. Whatever is in this house doesn't want us digging into the past." But Jake felt a different kind of fear creeping in, one tied to the uncertainty of what they might uncover. Their family history was unraveling, and as the darkness deepened around them, he realized that they were not just facing the unknown, they were awakening it. "Let's move quickly," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. They had come this far and they couldn't turn back now. The shadows were closing in, and the secrets of Maplewood awaited their discovery, waiting to reveal truths that could change everything. Jake's heart raced as he read the ornate handwriting in the leather-bound journal. The words seemed to pulse with a life of their own, revealing an unsettling narrative that intertwined with his family's history. Each line he deciphered painted a picture of a family steeped in secrets, rituals that blurred the lines between love and darkness. As he flipped through the pages, he stumbled upon a passage referencing a family member known only as the Keeper. The text spoke of a guardian tasked with protecting a powerful relic hidden within the house. The Keeper was said to have possessed abilities that transcended the ordinary, allowing them to commune with spirits and manipulate the shadows. But as the tales progressed, a sense of dread seeped through the ink. The Keeper had vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind only whispers of betrayal and sorrow. "Guys," Jake's voice trembled as he shared the revelations. "There's a family member we never knew about, the Keeper. They were supposed to protect something, but they disappeared." Uncle Mark squinted at the pages, his brow furrowed in concentration. That could explain the strange occurrences. If there's something powerful in this house, it might have been tied to the Keeper, and if they've vanished, maybe it's still here, and it doesn't want anyone to find it. The air grew heavy with unspoken fears, and Emily's excitement shifted into uncertainty. What if we're not meant to find it? What if we're disturbing something that should stay buried? Her voice quavered, revealing a vulnerability that Jake hadn't noticed before. Before Jake could respond, another loud crash echoed from below, more intense this time. It felt as if the very foundation of the house quaked in protest. Their flashlights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness for a brief moment before the light returned, revealing shadows that seemed to stretch and contort with malevolent intent. Jake's stomach dropped. "We should really get out of here." But Uncle Mark shook his head, his jaw set in determination. "No, we can't leave now. We need to understand what we're dealing with. If the Keeper's presence is still here, we need to confront it." Jake felt a surge of doubt rise within him, the notion that perhaps he was not just uncovering family secrets, but awakening something sinister. Had he crossed a line? The shadows seemed to grow closer, whispering doubts that gnawed at his mind. He glanced at the journal again, skimming through passages that now seemed to blur together, the ink appearing more like venomous tendrils than words. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from the hallway, slicing through the tension like a knife. Jake's breath caught in his throat, and he exchanged terrified glances with his family. "Emily!" he shouted, instinctively moving toward the door. "Wait!" Uncle Mark grabbed his arm, his grip firm. "We need to think this through. It might be a trap." But Jake couldn't wait. He tore the door open, the hinges creaking in protest, and rushed into the hallway. The oppressive darkness felt alive around him, a force trying to push him back. "Emily!" he yelled, desperation clawing at his throat. The hallway was empty, but the air vibrated with a palpable tension. The walls seemed to close in, shadows darting just out of sight. He turned back to see Uncle Mark and his mother following closely behind, their faces etched with worry. "Where is she?" Jake's voice was sharp, desperation creeping in. Just then, another crash came from a nearby room, followed by a faint whimper. Without thinking, Jake darted toward the source, praying Emily was safe. He flung open the door to the parlor, the room dimly illuminated by the flickering light of an overturned lamp. Emily was huddled in the corner, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. She pointed toward the far wall, where shadows twisted and writhed like living entities. It moved," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I saw it. Something was there." Jake's heart raced as he followed her gaze. The shadows seemed to congeal, forming a shape that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. It was a silhouette, dark and indistinct, but it pulsed with an energy that was undeniably alive. "Stay back!" Uncle Mark called, moving in front of them, his expression a mixture of determination and fear. "We don't know what it is." But Jake felt an inexplicable pull toward the shadow, as if it were calling to him. Memories surged through his mind, flashes of his childhood, fleeting images of family gatherings where laughter faded into whispers, long-forgotten stories of lost relatives shared in hushed tones, the Keeper, the relic. It all felt connected, and the shadow seemed to beckon him to uncover the truth. "Jake, don't!" His mother's voice broke through his reverie, panic lacing her tone. But he took a step forward, compelled to confront the darkness, to understand what it wanted. As he drew closer, the shadows began to shift, coalescing into something more substantial. A face emerged, features indistinguishable yet hauntingly familiar. Jake's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the resemblance. A distant relative, someone he had seen in old photographs. "Who are you?" he whispered, the question barely escaping his lips. The shadow flickered, and suddenly a rush of memories flooded Jake's mind, fragments of conversations and emotions that were not his own. He felt a surge of sadness, loss, and desperation intertwining with his own feelings. It was as if the shadow was sharing its story, revealing the pain of being forgotten, lost in the shadows of family history. "Jake, step back!" Uncle Mark shouted, but it was too late. The shadow surged forward, enveloping him in a whirlwind of darkness, and for a moment, Jake felt as though he was being pulled into the depths of a past he could not comprehend. Visions spiraled around him, a family torn apart by secrets, a keeper who had failed to protect, and a relic that had been hidden away, its power growing stronger with each passing year. The weight of their history crashed over him, and Jake realized that his family was not just haunted by the past. They were entangled in it, bound to the very shadows that sought to reclaim what had been lost. He gasped, struggling against the overwhelming tide of emotions. "I need to know," he cried out, his voice breaking through the chaos. "What do you want from us?" The shadow flickered, and for a moment, he thought he saw a glimmer of understanding in its depths. It spoke to him not in words, but through sensations, fear, longing, and an urgent need for resolution. Jake felt the connection deepen, the realization dawning that this was not just a family secret. It was a burden that had been passed down through generations, one that demanded acknowledgement and confrontation. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, and Jake stumbled back, gasping for air. The room spun around him, reality blurring. He felt Uncle Mark's hand on his shoulder, steadying him, grounding him. "Jake, we have to leave, now!" But the urgency in his uncle's voice felt distant. Jake's mind raced as he tried to piece together the fragmented memories that had washed over him. He glanced at Emily, who was pale but resolute, her fear replaced by a strange sense of determination. "We can't just abandon it," she said, her voice steady. "We need to understand what it wants. It's tied to our family, and if we leave now, it'll never let us go." Jake nodded slowly, feeling a growing conviction. They had come too far to turn back. The journal's revelations, the shadows in the hallway, and the figure that had emerged, they were all part of a larger narrative that demanded closure. "Okay," he said, his voice steadier now. "Let's confront it together. But we need to be careful. We have to find out what this shadow wants and how it connects to the Keeper." As they gathered their resolve, the air in the room shifted again. The shadows trembled, as if aware of their decision. Jake felt a flicker of hope amid the uncertainty. They were not just uncovering the past, they were reclaiming it. Together, they would face what lay ahead, unraveling the threads of their family's history, confronting the darkness that had loomed over them for far too long. The shadows were alive, but so were they, and they would not back down. With a shared determination, they turned back to the shadow, ready to uncover the truth that had been buried in the depths of Maplewood for generations. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together. Jake steadied himself as he faced the swirling shadow, which seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The air crackled with tension, and an unearthly chill swept through the parlor, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. Each heartbeat felt like a drum, echoing in the suffocating silence, urging him to act. The others stood behind him, their fear palpable, but he sensed a shared resolve that tethered them together. "What do you want from us?" he repeated, his voice firmer this time, cutting through the murky atmosphere. He felt Emily's presence beside him, her determination reinforcing his own. This was not just a flicker of terror, this was their family's legacy rising from the shadows, demanding attention. The shadow flickered again, projecting memories that felt almost tangible, images of a distant past that echoed with both longing and despair. He saw glimpses of the Keeper, a figure cloaked in darkness, standing vigil over a hidden relic, their face shrouded in sorrow. The Keeper had not just been a guardian, they were a prisoner of their duty, burdened by the weight of family secrets. "Jake, we need to leave." Uncle Mark's voice broke through the vision, sharp and urgent. He grabbed Jake's arm, but Jake shook his head, feeling the pull of the shadow intensify. "No, we can't run from this," he replied, the conviction rising within him like a flame. "If we turn our backs now, we'll never understand what happened to the Keeper or what this shadow truly is. This is our chance to confront it." Emily's eyes widened, and she took a step closer to Jake, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "But what if it's dangerous? What if it wants to hurt us? We don't even know what we're dealing with." Jake could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between the instinct to flee and the desire to uncover the truth. He felt it within himself, too, a battle between fear of the unknown and the urgent need to reclaim their family's narrative. If we don't find out what it wants, it will always be lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. The shadow seemed to pulse in response, a dark heartbeat echoing the tension in the room. It was as if it recognized the weight of their decision, and for a moment Jake felt a flicker of understanding pass between them. The shadow was not merely a threat, it was an entity bound to their family's history, desperate for acknowledgement. Suddenly the air thickened and the temperature dropped sharply. Shadows from the corners of the room began to stretch, dark tendrils creeping toward them as if the very essence of the house was coming alive, reacting to their choices. Jake's pulse quickened, and he could feel the fear of the others coiling around him like a serpent, tightening with each passing moment. "Jake, we can't stay here," Uncle Mark insisted, his voice strained. "We don't know what it's capable of." But Jake remained resolute. He had come too far to turn back now. "If we leave, we're giving up on the Keeper. We're abandoning whatever this shadow needs to share. We have to find out what it wants." Just then, another crash echoed through the house, reverberating like a warning bell. The entire parlor seemed to tremble, and the shadow recoiled, momentarily losing its shape. For a fleeting second, Jake caught a glimpse of something hovering in the darkness. A glimmering object, half buried in the ground beneath the shadow. It looked like a locket, its surface reflecting the dim light with a haunting glow. "Do you see that?" Jake pointed, his voice rising above the chaos. "There's something there. I think it's connected to the Keeper." Emily squinted, her fear momentarily replaced by curiosity. What if it's the relic? What if it's what the Keeper was meant to protect? Uncle Mark hesitated, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he considered the possibility. "If we can get to it, maybe we can understand the shadow better, but we need to be careful. If it tries to attack..." Jake felt the urge to act swell within him. "We can't let fear dictate our choices. We need to confront the shadow to see what it reveals. It's tied to our family's past, and if we're going to break this cycle, we need to uncover the truth." With a deep breath, Jake took a tentative step toward the shadow, feeling the oppressive weight of fear and uncertainty press down on him. The air crackled around him, and the dark entity twisted, as if sensing his approach. It felt alive, watching, waiting for the moment he would draw closer. "Jake!" Emily's voice was a mix of panic and urgency, but he pressed onward, feeling an inexplicable connection to the shadow, as if it were guiding him towards something lost and forgotten. As he neared the spot where the locket lay hidden, the shadows surged, swirling around him in a tempest of darkness. Jake could feel the chill seep into his bones. but he pressed on, his heart pounding with a combination of fear and exhilaration. He dropped to the ground, reaching out toward the locket, fingers trembling as they brushed against its cool metallic surface. The moment he touched it, a jolt of energy coursed through him, and the shadows recoiled violently, as if struck by an unseen force. Jake gasped, his vision blurring as a rush of memories flooded his mind once more. Fragments of laughter, tears, and echoes of betrayal that intertwined with his own life. He saw the keeper's face, the sorrow etched into their features, and felt a profound sense of loss. "Jake!" Uncle Mark shouted, but the words felt distant, muted by the surge of emotions colliding within him. The shadow twisted and writhed, its form shifting, revealing glimpses of the past, the keeper standing guard, their heart heavy with the burden of secrets, the relic glowing ominously in their grasp. "What is this?" Jake breathed, his voice breaking. "What happened to you?" In response, the shadow surged forward, enveloping him in darkness. For a moment he felt weightless, suspended between the realms of the living and the spirits that lingered in the house. He was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, fear, despair, and an overwhelming sense of purpose. The shadow was revealing its truth, but at what cost? Then, as quickly as it had begun, the whirlwind dissipated, leaving Jake gasping for breath, the locket clutched tightly in his hand. The room flickered back into focus, the oppressive weight of darkness lessened, but the tension still hung in the air like a storm cloud. The shadow loomed before him, its form less threatening now, flickering with uncertainty. It felt as if it were waiting, anticipating Jake's next move, as though it had laid bare its history and was now vulnerable. "Jake, we need to go," Emily urged, fear creeping back into her voice. But Jake held up the locket, feeling its warmth radiate through his fingers. "No, this is the key. This is what the keeper was trying to protect. We can't leave until we understand its significance." Uncle Mark's eyes darted between Jake and the shadow, uncertainty etched on his features. "What if it's dangerous? What if it wants to trap you?" "I don't think it wants that," Jake replied, his voice steadying. "It's tied to our family. It's showing me the pain it feels, the keeper's pain. We need to confront it, to understand what we've lost. Only then can we break free from its hold." As the tension in the room thickened, Jake felt the weight of the decisions before them. They stood on the precipice of understanding, their family's history laid bare before them. He could see Emily's determination waver, uncertainty clouding her eyes. But he also sensed a flicker of hope, a shared desire to confront the darkness that had haunted them for so long. "Together," he said, his voice firm, "we will face whatever lies ahead, whatever this shadow needs to share. We will listen. We will confront our family's past, and we will not back down." With a collective breath, they stepped closer to the shadow, the locket illuminating the darkness, casting a warm glow that pushed back against the encroaching fear. Whatever awaited them, they were ready to face it, united by their shared history and the determination to uncover the truth. As they stood together in the parlor, the shadows began to shift once more, revealing glimpses of what had been lost, what had been hidden. They were on the brink of unraveling the mystery that had haunted their family for generations, and with each heartbeat, they drew closer to the truth that lay in the darkness. And as the shadows swirled around them, Jake realized that this was only the beginning. The past had come alive, and with it, the promise of revelation and resolution awaited them in the depths of Maplewood House. As they stood at the threshold of the unknown, Jake could feel the air crackling with tension, a palpable energy that seemed to pulse in time with his racing heart. The locket in his hand warmed against his palm, drawing him further into the depths of the mystery that had tethered their family to this house for generations. "Are you sure about this?" Uncle Mark's voice was strained, the weight of his uncertainty evident in the furrow of his brow. The flickering shadows danced around them, the entity now a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to breathe with their every word. Jake nodded, resolute. This is our chance to confront the pain of the past. We can't let fear dictate our actions anymore. He felt Emily's hand squeeze his, her warmth a steadying presence in the storm of emotions swirling around them. "It's not just about you, Jake," Mark pressed, his eyes darting to the shadow, which appeared to ripple with agitation. "What if it's too late? What if whatever is bound to that locket is more than we can handle?" Jake turned to face his uncle, the weight of their family history heavy on his shoulders. "If we don't confront it now, it will only grow stronger. We've been running from this for too long." He held the locket aloft, its surface glimmering with an otherworldly light. "This is the key to understanding the Keeper's legacy. We have to unlock it." The shadow surged forward, twisting and writhing as if caught in a tempest. It seemed to react to Jake's declaration, a mixture of fear and anticipation emanating from its depths. He took a deep breath, ready to step into the unknown, when he felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The shadows around them began to coalesce, forming a figure that was both haunting and familiar. "Stop!" A voice boomed from the darkness, deep and resonant. The figure materialized, revealing a woman cloaked in shadows, her face obscured, but her presence commanding. "You know nothing of what you seek." Stunned, Jake faltered, a chill racing down his spine. "Who are you?" he demanded, steeling himself against the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. "I am the Keeper," the figure declared, her voice echoing through the parlor. "You seek to unearth the past, but you do not understand the consequences of your actions." Uncle Mark stepped forward, his voice trembling with authority. "You're bound to this house, aren't you? You've been trapped here, guarding secrets that have haunted our family for generations." The Keeper's form flickered, and shadows danced around her like a shroud. "I am both guardian and prisoner. This house holds memories that must never be forgotten, but also those that should not be revived. You do not know the darkness you invite." "Then help us understand," Jake implored, his heart pounding in his chest. "We can't move forward unless we confront what happened to you, to our family." "No!" The Keeper's voice thundered, reverberating through the walls of the parlor. "You will unleash a darkness that cannot be contained. The relic you hold is a fragment of my soul, a tether to the past. It binds us, but it also binds the pain." Emily stepped beside Jake, emboldened by his resolve. "But if we let that pain control us, we'll never heal. We need to face it to understand our family's legacy. We owe it to you and to ourselves." The Keeper paused, the shadows shifting in a hesitant dance. "You are brave, but bravery without wisdom can lead to destruction. You must choose. Will you face the truth, even if it shatters you?" The moment hung in the air, heavy with the weight of the decision before them. Jake felt the shadows swirling around him, a tempest of emotions and memories threatening to engulf him. He could sense Uncle Mark's apprehension, the uncertainty radiating from him like a beacon, yet he also felt Emily's unwavering support, the connection between them growing stronger as they stood united against the encroaching darkness. Jake took a step closer to the Keeper, grounding himself in the urgency of the moment. "We choose to confront it. We choose to face whatever comes. This is our family, our legacy, and we refuse to let fear dictate our lives any longer." With that proclamation, the locket in his hand pulsed with a brilliant light, illuminating the shadows and revealing glimpses of the past, fragments of joy, sorrow, and betrayal that intertwined with their family's history. The Keeper's form flickered, her expression shifting from anger to something softer, almost wistful. "Very well," she said, her voice now laced with a hint of resignation. "But know this, the truth will not come without a price. You must be prepared to face the darkness within yourselves." As the shadows swirled, Jake felt a strange calm settle over him. He glanced back at Emily and Uncle Mark, their eyes wide but resolute. They shared a silent understanding. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together. The darkness around them began to pulse, centering on the locket in Jake's grasp. Memories surged forth, and the room transformed into a swirling vortex of images and emotions. Jake felt himself pulled into the memories of the Keeper, experiencing her past as if it were his own. He saw a young woman, vibrant and full of life, holding the same locket, her laughter echoing through the hallways of Maplewood House. But then, the laughter turned to tears, and shadows began to close in around her. A betrayal, a sacrifice made to protect the family's secrets. He felt her pain, the burden of her duty weighing heavily on her heart, and the darkness that ensnared her soul. Remember, the Keeper's voice echoed in his mind. The choices we make shape our destinies. Do not let the past dictate your future. As the memories washed over him, Jake felt the weight of his ancestors pressing down on him, a kaleidoscope of emotions threatening to drown him. He reached for the light within the locket, focusing on the warmth it radiated. "We're here to break the cycle," he whispered, feeling the connection grow stronger with each heartbeat. Suddenly, the vortex of memories erupted, and the shadows surged around them, twisting and turning in a chaotic dance. Jake felt the pull of darkness, but he fought against it, anchoring himself in the warmth of the locket and the presence of Emily and Uncle Mark. "Stay with me!" he shouted, turning to face them as the shadows loomed closer. "We can't let it take us!" Emily reached for his hand, her grip firm and unyielding. "We're with you, Jake. We'll face it together." Mark stepped forward, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Whatever the truth is, we'll face it as a family. We won't let it tear us apart." As their voices intertwined, the shadows began to retreat, faltering against the strength of their unity. The Keeper's form flickered, her expression shifting to one of awe. "You have the power to reshape your legacy. You must choose to embrace the light and confront the darkness together." Jake felt a surge of energy coursing through him, the light of the locket illuminating the shadows that had long dominated their family's history. In that moment, he understood. The true strength lay not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to confront it head-on. With renewed determination, he turned back to the Keeper. "We're ready. Show us the truth, and we will face it together." The Keeper's shadows swirled around them, the air thick with anticipation. "Then prepare yourselves. The truth awaits, but it will not come without challenge." As the darkness surged forward, Jake felt the weight of his ancestors' expectations pressing down on him. He knew this was the moment of reckoning, the climax of their family's struggle against the shadows of the past. And with every ounce of strength within him, he prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. Together, they stepped into the abyss, ready to unearth the truths buried beneath the weight of history, determined to reclaim their family's legacy from the shadows that had long haunted Maplewood House. As they plunged into the swirling vortex of memories and shadows, the world around them dissolved into a chaotic maelstrom of light and dark. Jake felt the overwhelming weight of generations of pain and sorrow pressing in on him, each memory a sharp shard of glass, threatening to cut deeper into his soul. The warmth of the locket pulsed fiercely in his hand, a beacon amidst the storm, guiding him forward. The moment they crossed the threshold, a cacophony of voices erupted around them, whispers of despair and echoes of long-buried secrets. Images flickered before their eyes. A family torn apart by betrayal, a love sacrificed for duty, and a darkness that crept insidiously into their lives. Jake's heart raced, the realization dawning on him that these were not just memories of the Keeper, but echoes of his own family's history. "Stay together!" Jake shouted, his voice barely piercing through the din of chaos. He felt Emily's grip tighten around his hand, a lifeline in the tempest. Mark's presence beside them was a solid foundation, reminding them of the strength that lay in their unity. With each step deeper into the memories, the shadows began to coalesce into distinct forms. They saw the faces of their ancestors, twisted in anguish, the pain of their choices written in the lines of their expressions. The shadows surged towards them, threatening to pull them into the depths of despair. "Jake!" Emily's voice broke through the noise, filled with urgency. "Focus on the light. Remember why we're here." With that, Jake turned his gaze to the locket. It glimmered brighter than ever, casting a warm glow that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. He felt the weight of his family's legacy pressing on his shoulders, but now it felt lighter. With each moment, he realized that confronting the truth was not just about facing the past. It was also about embracing the potential for healing and growth. "The Keeper!" Mark's voice rang out. "We need to understand her story." The shadows momentarily receded, revealing the figure of the Keeper, her form flickering like a candle in the wind. "You have come seeking the truth, but know this: the past is not easily laid to rest. It demands to be acknowledged, not just faced." Jake stepped forward, emboldened by his companion's presence. "We understand. We're ready to listen. We want to honor your sacrifice and learn from it." With a deep, resonant sigh, the Keeper's form stabilized and the shadows began to morph, revealing the scenes of her life. Jake watched as the young woman laughed and danced, love and joy radiating from her. But the laughter soon faded, replaced by tears and despair. He saw the betrayal unfold, a family torn apart by secrets, a choice made that led to her entrapment. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, a man cloaked in darkness, his face twisted in a grimace of malice. "You dare to uncover the truth," he snarled, the ground trembling beneath his feet. "You will pay for the sins of your ancestors." The Keeper's voice rose above the chaos. "He is the embodiment of their guilt. You must confront him, face the darkness within your family, or be consumed by it." Jake felt the shadows closing in, the darkness threatening to swallow them whole. "We won't let it," he shouted, feeling the strength of his family beside him. "We are not our ancestors. We will not be defined by their mistakes." As if fueled by his defiance, the locket pulsed with energy, casting a brilliant light that illuminated the dark figure. The shadows recoiled, and Jake could feel the weight of the darkness beginning to lift. He turned to Emily and Mark, their expressions resolute, and they stepped forward as one, united against the embodiment of their family's fears. Together, they confronted the dark figure, their combined strength igniting the light of the locket. "We break the cycle," they declared, voices intertwined, resonating with an intensity that shook the very foundation of the shadows. With one final surge of energy, the darkness exploded outward, dissipating in a blinding flash of light. Jake felt himself thrown backward, crashing into the ground as the world around them stabilized. The storm of memories receded, and the chaos faded into silence. As the dust settled, Jake blinked against the sudden calm. He looked around, his heart still racing, and saw Emily and Mark beside him, their faces marked with exhaustion, but their expressions were also filled with relief. The Keeper stood before them, her form now radiant, freed from the chains of shadows that had bound her for so long. "Thank you," she said, her voice softer now, imbued with gratitude. "You have faced the darkness, not only for yourselves, but for all who came before you. You have reclaimed what was lost." But as they began to catch their breath, an unsettling silence enveloped them. Jake's heart sank as he noticed that even though they had defeated the embodiment of their family's guilt, shadows still lingered at the edges of their reality. The air felt heavy, charged with unresolved emotions. "What now?" Jake asked, his voice hoarse. The Keeper's expression grew somber. "You have embraced the truth, but the echoes of the past will always remain. Healing takes time, and the scars of history may never fully fade, yet you have the power to shape your own destiny. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine, the weight of her words settling in. He glanced at Emily and Mark, who were both looking deep in thought. The relief of their victory was tempered by the realization that their journey was far from over. "What about the dark figure?" Emily asked, her brow furrowed. "Will it return?" The keeper shook her head slowly. "The darkness you faced was born of your family's choices. It has been vanquished for now, but remnants may linger. You must remain vigilant, for shadows can take many forms, and not all battles are fought in the physical realm." Mark looked at Jake, concern etched on his face. "We need to understand the full extent of this legacy. There may be more truths that we have yet to uncover." Jake nodded, resolve building within him. "Then we'll have to dig deeper. We can't allow fear to control us any longer." As they stood together, the locket in Jake's hand began to glow softly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. He sensed that it held not only the weight of the past, but also the potential for the future. A future that still bore mysteries yet to be unraveled. With a newfound determination, they began to leave the remnants of the shadows behind, stepping back into the world that awaited them beyond the threshold of Maplewood House. Yet as they crossed the threshold, Jake felt a lingering chill, a whisper of something unresolved, brushing against his consciousness. Their journey was far from over. The keeper had freed herself, but the legacy of their family still loomed large, filled with unanswered questions that begged to be explored. The echoes of the past would continue to resonate, and Jake knew they would need to confront the shadows lurking in the corners of their lives once more. Together, they walked into the dawn, ready to face whatever awaited them, armed with the knowledge that they were stronger together. But as the sun began to rise, casting long shadows behind them, a flicker of darkness danced just beyond the edges of their vision, a reminder that their story was still being written, and the mysteries of Maplewood House had only just begun to unfold. As Jake, Emily, and Mark stepped beyond the threshold of Maplewood House, the soft glow of dawn greeted them, illuminating a world that felt both familiar and foreign. The weight of what they had just encountered lingered in the air, a tangible reminder of the shadows they had faced. The keeper's final words echoed in Jake's mind, urging him to remember that healing was a journey, not a destination. Yet, with every step they took, a sense of unease settled within him. The darkness had been vanquished, but the flicker he felt at the edges of his consciousness hinted that their victory was not as definitive as they hoped. Jake glanced at his friends, noting the worry etched on their faces. Emily, usually so vibrant, looked lost in thought, while Mark's brows were furrowed with concern. "Are we really safe?" Emily finally voiced the question that hung heavily in the air. "We faced the darkness," Jake replied, trying to summon confidence he didn't fully feel. "We broke its hold, but I can't shake the feeling that it's not over." Mark nodded, casting a wary glance back at the house. "The keeper warned us. Shadows can linger, and we need to be prepared for whatever comes next." As they walked away from Maplewood House, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows that danced ominously behind them. The warmth of its rays felt comforting, yet the chill that had accompanied their confrontation remained, an unsettling reminder of the darkness they had unearthed. Jake clutched the locket tightly, its warmth still pulsing in his palm. He felt a connection to the past, a link to the ancestors who had suffered and to the lessons they had yet to learn. "We need to honor their stories," he said, breaking the silence. "We can't let their pain be in vain. We have to find a way to heal, for them and for ourselves." Emily and Mark exchanged glances, and a flicker of determination sparked between them. "We'll do it together," Emily said, her voice steadier now. "We'll uncover the truth, no matter how painful. We owe it to the keeper." But as they ventured further away from the house, the shadows seemed to grow longer. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that unseen eyes were tracking their every move. The locket's light dimmed slightly, as if sensing his unease. Hours passed as they roamed through the surrounding woods, the vibrant life of nature contrasting sharply with the darkness they had just confronted. They talked, shared their fears, and began piecing together the fragmented history that bound their families. Yet despite their efforts, an unsettling silence hung over them, as if the very air was holding its breath. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Jake caught a flicker of movement. He turned, heart racing, but all he saw was a shadow darting behind a tree. "Did you see that?" he asked, voice low. Mark nodded, tension creeping into his shoulders. "I didn't imagine it. We should—" Before he could finish, a bone-chilling howl echoed through the trees, reverberating in Jake's chest. The sound was primal, filled with anguish and fury. It was a sound that spoke of unresolved pain, a cry that resonated with the darkness they had faced. "Run!" Jake shouted, instinctively grabbing Emily and Mark's hands. They sprinted through the underbrush, adrenaline coursing through their veins. But the howl was followed by another, and then another, as if the very forest had come alive with sorrowful echoes. They stumbled into a clearing, panting and wide-eyed. The sun was still shining, but the shadows felt thicker here, coiling around them like serpents. Jake felt the locket pulse erratically in his grasp, and a sudden dread washed over him. "Is this what the keeper meant?" Jake gasped, trying to catch his breath. "Have we awakened something we can't control?" Emily's eyes darted around, searching for a way out. "We have to confront it. We can't let it consume us." Mark stepped forward, his expression resolute. "If the darkness is still here, then we have to face it again. We can't keep running." As if in response, the shadows in the clearing began to coalesce, forming into sinister shapes that twisted and turned, whispering secrets of despair and regret. Jake's heart raced as he recognized the faces of his ancestors within the darkness, their expressions frozen in anguish. "No!" he shouted, clutching the locket tightly. "We are not defined by your pain. We seek to heal, to break the cycle." The shadows swelled, and the howls grew louder, a cacophony of voices merging into one. "You cannot escape your bloodline," the darkness hissed, an icy chill creeping into Jake's bones. "You are bound to us forever." "Enough!" Emily cried, stepping forward with determination. "We choose our own path. We will not succumb to your despair." With that declaration, the locket blazed to life, a beacon of hope piercing through the encroaching shadows. Jake felt a surge of energy, and he joined Emily, holding the locket high. Mark stood beside them, his presence a steadying force against the darkness. The shadows recoiled, but the darkness was relentless, swirling around them like a tempest. The howls reached a fever pitch, and Jake felt a new fear creeping in. What if they had stirred something that could never be quelled? In that moment, a voice broke through the chaos, soft yet powerful. "You are not alone. You carry the light of hope within you." The keeper's form appeared before them, shimmering with an ethereal glow. "Embrace your truth, and the shadows will falter. You have the power to rewrite your narrative." With renewed resolve, Jake shouted, "We choose to heal. We choose to break the cycle." The locket shone brighter, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to envelop them. The shadows writhed, but the light was relentless, illuminating the clearing with a warmth that banished the chill. But as the light surged, Jake felt a sudden pull, a deep connection to the shadows that still lingered. The darkness was not merely an enemy, it was a part of his family's legacy, a legacy that demanded acknowledgement and understanding. In that moment, he understood the ambiguity of their situation. The shadows could not be wholly vanquished, nor could they be completely embraced. They were intertwined, a part of the tapestry of existence, and to ignore them would be to deny a crucial aspect of their journey. As the light and darkness danced around them, Jake realized they were not just battling external forces, they were confronting the echoes of their own fears and regrets. The keeper's gaze met his, and he saw understanding mirrored there. "Your journey is just beginning," she whispered, her voice fading into the light. "The shadows will always be a part of you, but you have the strength to choose how they shape your story." With one final surge, the light enveloped them, and the shadows receded, leaving behind a profound silence. They stood in the clearing, breathless, the locket's glow fading to a soft pulse in Jake's hand. The weight of their victory felt bittersweet, as the lingering shadows remained a part of their reality. As the trio caught their breath, the sun cast long shadows across the ground, a reminder that light and dark coexist in every story. Jake looked at Emily and Mark, their expressions a mix of relief and uncertainty. "What do we do now?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake's heart ached with the complexity of their journey. "We continue to explore. We acknowledge our past, but we also create our future. The shadows will always be there, but we are not defined by them." The air was thick with possibility, and as they turned to leave the clearing, Jake felt a shift within himself. The echoes of the past would always linger, but together they could navigate the path ahead, embracing both the light and the dark. And as they walked into the dawn, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their story was far from over. The mysteries of Maplewood House still awaited them, and the shadows, though diminished, would forever dance at the periphery of their lives, reminders of the choices they would continue to face.